Welcome to the program, everyone, and really pleased today to have with me from Sydney, Australia, my hometown, Mr. Pree Sarkar, who has been taking the recruitment world by storm, especially the sales recruitment world. And we really want to get into some recruiting and career management topics. So, Pree, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. So, Pree, congratulations. I know you're ranked in the 1% of executive recruiters on LinkedIn a couple of times. You've won a lot of awards. You've had your business going for 12 years now.
Yeah.
And you're not only doing recruiting, but in recent times, you've developed this career coaching thing. And I'd really like to talk to you about how sales executives and management can manage their careers more proactively and better. So yeah. Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on what's going on out there and the mistakes folks are making in managing their careers?
Thanks, Steve. Essentially, there are two significant trends that we need to be aware of. I guess trend number one is the trend of digital transformation that is sweeping through every conceivable industry.
Yep.
And essentially, from a digital transformation point of view, as much as we have this conversation on a daily basis with customers being impacted, our own careers are being impacted by the digital transformation that's taking place. What that really means is that on a daily basis, people are discovering new ways that they're being approached for new roles and opportunities, as well as new avenues of connecting with people, someone who's in Utah, reaching out to someone via LinkedIn for a role. Whereas in the past, go back 10, 20, 30 years, depending on whenever people got into the workforce, it was often based on a resume, an application, or someone that you knew you got on the
personal
shoulder.
Network. You were almost limited by your personal network as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if we say a Y2K, a 2000 job strategy was perhaps, if you were early, mid, or even experienced, was a combination of your resume and your network, personal network.
Yep.
A 2020 job strategy and career management strategy beyond that is comprised of three significant things. So people still are applying for roles, but it is on LinkedIn, Seek, Glassdoor, a variety of sources, which has been transformed digitally. People are being engaged by potential hiring sources all around the world, right? And then the third part that I've seen very effective, which I have been educating so many people on who've been impacted by COVID, is really what I learned in the late 90s as I came into the workforce and have seen work ever since. And that's really a proactive prospecting approach to actually find your next role. So to recap, you'll apply for roles. That's apply, number one. Number two is you attract by optimizing your LinkedIn profile, because people are looking for keywords, titles, specific experiences, and will find you if you have them in there. But number three, which is my favorite, which is engage, where you actually take a market mapping concept and identify the companies you'd love to work for and actually connect with VPs and sales directors, depending on who's your one line up, and basically send them a short, sharp message expressing the value that you can bring into the team. So
I think that's great advice, right? Like, all good sales VPs and sales directors are always looking for good talent, right? I know in my last corporate job, I had quite a large sales team, and I was always proactively looking for hires, even if I didn't have an open headcount. And I know if someone had proactively approached me, not just with their CV, but like you say, with what they can do for you, what their value is, of course, I'd be open to putting them in the mix somewhere, right?
Absolutely. And I look back at one of my favorite sales managers or sales directors that I worked with. I was a sales manager at a time at a Fortune 500, but this was my first 3 months. And he had, come down from Singapore, where it was the hub. And basically he said, how many potential sales reps have you met in the last month? And I said, none. We don't have open positions. So,
lesson.
So he said, well, we're always hiring. Sometimes there are openings and sometimes they aren't.
Sure.
He said, if you make it a point to at least meet 2 potential people every month that you think are worth investing some time in, when you do have an open position, you'll be surprised how many people you can call. And at the time, I had a team of 11 direct reports, and that was really good advice as a young sales manager.
Sure. Now, if you've got 11 direct reports, just with natural attrition, you're going to lose 1 or 2 or 3 people a year for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that, they could be moving town. They may not like the job. They may not be performing. And it's always great to have some warm bench outside the company, right?
Absolutely.
And I always believe if you meet someone great and you don't have a role, you'll find some way to create a role. Or it gives you confidence to move on a poor performer.
Yeah, so the Harvard Business Review had done a fascinating study over 10 years about sales teams and performance. And what they said is that they would categorize team into 3, any given team into 3 categories. You have trailblazers, core performers, and laggards. Trailblazers are people who will, open up new territories, win marquee accounts. There may be a bit of a body count around them, but these are exceptionally good at what they do. Core performers are the ones who are hovering between the 90 to 110%. They will deliver their number quarter in, quarter out, very steady.
Yep.
The laggards are people who are maybe within the first 6 months, finding their feet, and the question mark is still on them, or people who have had a great year, but basically do not necessarily have the habits that are contributing to a rich pipe. And long story short, you always have opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, always opportunity to improve your team, right? And improve ourselves, of course. So let's go back to, presenting ourselves properly digitally and, on LinkedIn in particular. I see a lot of sales folks pretty much listing their jobs and their achievements, which is something. What do you think a profile should have? Should it lean more towards industry knowledge and expertise versus their roles and experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe that at the end of the day, your LinkedIn profile is basically, if you think in terms of a Porsche has a brochure. It also has an owner's manual. When you walk into the showroom, you don't get given the owner's manual. You either get given the brochure or you get given, be allowed to sit inside it, right? Yes. So essentially, LinkedIn is your brochure. It's a summary of the value that you bring to the audience. You have 2 audiences in your career. Audience number 1, especially in sales, is your customers.
Yes.
Audience number 2 is future employers. And sales can be often a volatile and unforgiving job, especially if you are in new business. Because you need the band to play, you need the right product, you need the customer opportunity, you need the support structure to be able to deliver numbers. And even if one piece is missing, you're probably going to find yourself looking for that next opportunity if you can't salvage your situation.
Yes.
As such, I think as salespeople, it is absolutely critical to be proactive in managing our careers, and LinkedIn is a great way to do that. So to answer the question that you asked me before, if you are someone who is specifically in one industry and have been in that industry, let's just, for the sake of discussion, say you've been in software analytics and been focusing on major banks for the sake of discussion. If you've been in analytics and you want to remain in analytics, then that's a great platform to use with your title and the content that you put in, which is specifically around analytics. And I actually have someone in mind who does a great job of talking about the trend, what's happening in terms of transformation in analytics, AI in analytics, chatbots in analytics,
Yes.
basically the change that's happening at the customer end. And people find that really interesting. So it's not really just really when you need to change roles, you're actually showing up in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about something that is relevant, that is useful, and has the attention of both your current and future customers. And that really becomes a gift that keeps on giving. So I do believe that, in terms of quick tips, when I get asked about quick tips on LinkedIn every single day. And number one, your headshot. This is LinkedIn, it's not Facebook. Simple explanation. It's got to be a professional headshot. Number two, your headline. Your headline really pre-frames what the reader's about to read. And pre-framing is really, as we see a line which really tells us, so if you say analytics, financial services, and if you want to talk about transformation, so transformational account executive, analytics in financial services, for example.
Sure.
But it reframes what the person's about to see in the rest of the profile.
Absolutely.
So your headline is a huge advertising opportunity using 3 to 7 keywords that you'll get found with, 3 to 7 keywords with which you name yourself.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I think if we position ourselves, if we're in a vertical or in an industry, and it's not just when you're looking for a job, like you say, but if we're engaging with customers, if we're positioning ourselves as a analytics expert in financial services, and we're writing content or we're sharing content relevant to that audience, and we're showing our expertise there, then we are attractive to someone looking for a salesperson in that field, right? Because we can also say, oh yeah, I'm a great salesperson and I achieved all these things. But that's maybe less convincing because so many profiles look like that. And all salespeople will say, they've achieved a lot or whatever, right? So I think really important to present ourselves as industry experts. And if we're not doing that in our prospecting and our normal sales motion, we're missing out on something because customers are moving digitally for their information now.
Yes, and a simple rule of thumb is that if you're attractive to customers, you'll be attractive to employers.
Right. Okay.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah. Very good. So, Pree, you said there are two big things. The first one being the digital transformation, which you went through. Being on digital channels, you're now available globally, and then being proactive. Was there a second big area with the career management?
Thank you. The second area is how do you manage your career through COVID?
Okay.
Over the past 4 or 5 months now, I have had so many messages and calls from people who have either been last in, first out, who have just been in an industry where everything's been put on hold, people who have lost their roles or just do not see themselves making it through the next 6 months in their current workplace and saying, what should I do? I'm either looking now or I need to find something soon.
Yes.
And so that's the second. So you've got the mega trend and you've got the COVID. So what I say to people over and over again is that number one, we're going back to LinkedIn again. You need to, if you don't do anything else, you need to get your resume and LinkedIn updated as quickly as possible. Your resume, you need to demonstrate significant value. And what I mean by that, and again, here's a little tip, is that 80% of your resume needs to be about outcomes with quantified results. So action words and quantification. Because I can tell you, I have sat through thousands of job briefs. I have placed lots and lots and lots of senior sales executives, sales managers, managing directors, VPs. And when people read resumes, they look for the numbers.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So in your resume, and then on your LinkedIn, it needs to demonstrate value, because that
Yes.
is what people are looking
You want to be leading with those outcomes, I guess. Like, don't have them buried all through the document. Like, do folks usually go past that first page or the first couple of paragraphs?
No, they don't.
No.
When people are reading resumes, sometimes they can have 200 resumes in that queue. And your nature is to scan really quickly. And you're lucky if you're getting 7 seconds, because what people are really doing is that they are looking at titles to make a decision. Titles and companies. Is this person from a relevant space? And they will look further into accomplishments.
Yes.
And that's why headlines in resumes as well as in your LinkedIn profile are critical. So I had someone who had on page 2 that they were the number 1 salesperson of the year at this company that they worked with recently. And I said, that's in the wrong place.
Right.
Because if that's the one thing that you say to me in 7 seconds, last year was the number 1 worldwide salesperson, that is enough for you to have my attention to now spend.
Put that in the headline, put that first. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's really what, it's just really important to have the value that you bring front and center in front of people. It's so good that you can't ignore it.
Yes, yes. Okay, Pree, I know you're advising a lot of folks at the moment. You've got a booming practice in helping folks in that situation, with COVID, and, they've either lost their role or they're looking to make a change because the prospects aren't good where they are. What process do you take those folks through?
So, Steve, I take people through a 4-step process that we have refined over the last 12 years, because every time I place someone, for example, and someone gets a contract, there are 5 people who didn't get a contract. There's as much to learn as why they didn't get a contract from those who actually did get a contract.
Okay.
And
what are some of those lessons? Tell me.
There are 4 things. Number 1 is the right fit. So people who have high definition clarity about what they want next, whether it is, for example, an individual contributor or a management role, whether you want to work for a startup or you want to work for a large and well-established company, that kind of clarity. What's the kind of management and culture you work best with? So that's number 1, high definition clarity and focus on the right fit. Number 2 is a strong personal brand. Personal branding is a combination of your career marketing materials. That's your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and in fact, going beyond that, your ability to post on LinkedIn, write a few articles, and tell some stories so that you go beyond just brochureware to actually something that communicates immense value to the marketplace. Number 3 is the game changer. Number 3 is your market map. And market map is a list of all the companies that you want to work for, or as we would call it, a target list or a prospect list. So for the sake of discussion, if you want to work for companies like Amazon Web Services, Google, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, let's pick 5. I know companies exceptionally well. You need to basically not only have those names, you also need to identify on LinkedIn who are the sales directors and sales managers in those roles, depending on whatever your future boss.
Yes.
That's market mapping. And the final stage in that market mapping process is sending, we call it an M1 and an M2. Message 1 is a connection request, which is a generic connection request. Message 2 is a more tailored connection request, a message which says, Steve, I wanted to make you aware that over the last 3 years, I was the number 1 salesperson in this, and you list really 3 results. If this can help you in your mission, it's all about them.
Yes. Not I'm looking for a role or something. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Experienced people are still making it about themselves. It's always about the other person.
Great point. Like, we know that in selling, right? That's very important principle of modern selling. We've got to talk to the customer about their problem and helping them, not about our product. So same when we're trying to get a job for ourselves, what problem can we solve for that person? That's going to get attention.
And those are the messages that get responses. Yes, I'm willing to have a chat. I don't have anything right now, but you should talk to someone else. It creates referrals. It gets responses. So leading with value is what gets you responses. And finally is that interview influence piece. Now you've done the work, you've opened the door. And a lot of people say, I'm good when I get in through the door. And yet I see experienced people making the same mistake. So essentially, once you get through the door, we educate people about consultative interviews. People have learned consultative selling, but they're still not doing consultative interviews. And there are two pillars to it. Pillar number one is really what are the top 3 problems that you're currently facing in this territory, in this role? Because every role has a history.
Yes.
And it's important that in the first half of your meeting, you discover what that is. You also want to discover what are the top 3 goals. What do you want to achieve 12 months?
We're not just being reactive in that interview. We're not just answering questions and talking about ourselves again, right? It's got to be an interaction.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's really where you demonstrate. You don't say, I'm a consultant. There's no point in having consultative sales professional written on your resume and yet not consult during the interview.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward, but a lot of folks don't get it. They have a habit of this is the way interviews used to go, and we're sort of like passive and going along trying to present ourselves, blow our own trumpet. Whereas we will demonstrate our capability through our questions, through our observations. You ask, what happened in that? What's been happening in that territory? Oh, interesting. Did you try this? Did you try that?
That's right.
Oh, that's right. And what happened after then? And through your questions, through your interaction, that they'll realize you know what you're talking about. It's much more effective than telling. It's showing, not telling.
That's right.
Yes.
And so top 3 problems and top 3 goals, because then when you understand this is what we're struggling with, this is what we, the last rep burnt the relationship. We haven't had a sale in this territory for the last 12 months. So you understand what you're walking into. You can actually realize, because this is actually an emotional problem as well that the hiring manager is struggling with. So a lot of people get stuck at a logical level, but the best interviews have an emotional connection because you've actually touched on genuine pain points. We've been taught about this for the last how long, and yet we get into a Q&A mode, like you just said. You put it better than I am right now, is that we are trained into a Q&A mode. You're going to ask the questions, so what did you, tell me a little bit more about yourself. We look at these top 10 questions, and yet we're not walking in, asking the real questions early on. And mind you, I've had situations where I cringe at this, but I still have had situations where a VP or a senior exec is sitting with a laptop and an Excel spreadsheet with questions and really looking at questions, not even making eye contact and actually punching in answers. I mean, those are people don't want to work for those people.
No.
Because it's good to be process driven, but if you're so focused on the process that you actually forget the person, well, that's a red flag right there.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So I was just going to wrap that up by saying, interview influence is really about discovering what are the problems, what are the goals, and then tailoring a solution roadmap. A solution roadmap is really a 3 to 5 step process. How am I going to take you from your problems to your goals? And here's how I am going to do it. And here's how I have done it in the past. Because, past performance is the most reliable indicator of future behavior. So you connect your story with your plans.
Yes.
That is the most powerful way to communicate your value through that interview process. And you can even follow that up with a 2-page executive summary. Here's what I propose I would do, and here's what I've done. That blows away the thank you email, though people don't even say thank you emails and notes as much, but sending a follow-up 2-page. summary really demonstrate that this person is consultative, they're engaged, they already have a plan. It says all those things people put in the resume but need to demonstrate.
I think this is golden advice, Pree. I really appreciate it. And I think folks should really listen to this, rewind this, listen to it again, take notes, because this is going to make you stand out from the competition. The job market is 10 times tougher than it was a year ago or even 6 months ago. And we really need to up our game if we want to get our next desired role and get a great role. Folks are still hiring, right, Pree? We're seeing hiring coming. Smart sales directors and sales VPs who are under pressure are looking to upgrade their teams and upskill their teams. So there are roles there. We just need to fight, much smarter and much harder here.
We've seen a 30% quarter-on-quarter increase. So between April, May, June,
okay,
Q2 for some, Q4 for others, and July, August, September, there's been a 30% increase. The conditions may not have changed, but people's tolerance for the status quo has, this is the new normal. We've got
to perform in this market as well. The excuses are going away. Yeah.
Let's just get on with it. And so as such, they've gotten approvals for more roles. There's more hiring that's out there. And so,
Yeah, no, I think great advice. Pree, we're coming to the end of our time. Are there any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
The most important thing that I would say to someone who's considering their career ahead is that personal branding is the gift that keeps on giving. And personal branding in the context of how you manage yourself on LinkedIn and communicate value to customers and value to future employers helps you both in the short term as well as in the long term. So more partners want to work with you, more employers want to work with you, you get opportunities to speak at events, you become the embodiment of the message that you bring for your employers. And that is very, very attractive. And that's the way to manage your brand in 2020 and the decade ahead.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Pree. And I think few salespeople and sales leaders are doing a good job here. So I think if you get in and you start building your own personal brand, there's great opportunity to stand out. So really fantastic advice today. Thanks a lot, Pree, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and everyone, please check Pree out. His company is Switch, and his book is called Switch. And he's, like I say, taking the recruitment and career management world by storm. And please check him out. And thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. And look forward to engaging with you more. And bye for now.